Is the sound okay? Can you hear me well enough?
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you. Well, I can see you all. Um, okay, all right. Okay, if anyone is joining late, I'll fit them to the side, but I'm just going to continue now with mind and consciousness, tonight's inquiry. We'll just have some silence, we'll just connect, and then we'll begin to observe. If anyone has a question at any time, feel free to ask. I've got one question that was emailed to me. I'll read that one out. I'm going to read out this question first that was sent to me. So the question is, you said last week that correction can only occur in the body mind via discrimination. If I'm not awakened, can correction still occur? Is this the miracle A Course in Miracles speaks of? Is discrimination available at times while still identified with the body mind, but there is a believing in reality as yet not experienced? Cora. There's two types of correction. There's the correction in relation to your own image, or there's correction in relation to conscious contact, in relation to sonship, pure consciousness. In the beginning, when correction is in your own image, it can be where you're learning new principles, where you've found something new, where you've found inspiration. For instance, the Course in Miracles. It's something you can share. It's something that everyone can understand and partake in that understanding, whether it's Advaita, Buddhism, Christianity. And then things begin to change in relation to those principles that you're applying, but you still apply it in your own image. You still claim it. The effort comes from you. This happens all the time. This happens with a lot of people. You find something good and you share it. And it's a feel good. It's exciting. I had the same excitement when I found the 12 steps. It was a knowledge that I could share. And in that sharing, that there was correction in my forms. There was correction in the deep feeling in my body and the subtle form, emotional form that would react to it. Through working the principles, through understanding them from how I understood them, gave me something to do. It gave me something to share, something to partake. But this kind of correction is what I call person-centered. It still remains person-centered, no different to person-centered therapy. It is a means to the end, but it is not the end. Because in the case of what truly corrects, the end of person-centered evolution, doership, signals, in fact, the beginning of true correction, the beginning being consciousness. You can remain in the person-centered reality with something you've found, something you practice, something you do, something you share. And of course, change does occur. But that change comes from your own personal sense of facilitation. And that personal sense of facilitation is still ego. It's still ego. It's still person-centered based on what you do, how you do it. So change occurs, but it is not the true correction. It's a learning. You can become more aware. Your awareness can become more than the sum parts of the content that appears in it, but you'll always claim it because it's you becoming aware, because it's you that is aware. The you that facilitates awareness is the last thing to go. And when it does go, you then come to see how that, in fact, has been the investment. It was just a dream of waking up. It's a huge investment. But nonetheless, it is nothing more, nothing less than spiritual, person-centered reality. This kind of reality is what makes up the largest part of where the world is today. They share it, they love it, they collude with it. And they even change. But waking up is different. Coming to see what is a true correction is completely different. The difference between the the person-centered spirituality and the true correcting reality is a difference between two things. What stands predominantly the principal reality of your person-centered reality is I. It's you. When the you falls away, you then fall into the predominant reality of true correction. And that is observation, observer. When you can identify yourself as the observer, you then can truly identify yourself as one. And you have to awaken to it. Because even the ego can replicate observation. It comes up with the doing principle of observation, yet there's no one observing. Observation is pure consciousness, pure awareness. It just is. And when that observation identifies with itself, there's actually no one identifying with it. It is awareness aware of awareness. That always remains one. The principal reality of practicing principles from the person-centered meaning is always from a thinker, I, with the object thought it shares with others. This is duality. And this duality will lead you to the very threshold of reality. Because it is this sense of duality that eventually must come to an end as the doing principle, as the reality principle. The reality principle is consciousness. That is all. It is then, upon true observation, upon true seeing, that you come to see how the 12 steps, the Course in Miracles, the Buddhism has been pointing at this reality. And you can then throw the book away. But not so with the interpersonal or person-centered type of doership. It reads from the book and lives its life in relation to the book. Of course, this is person-centered. That's how it is. That's how it was for me in working the 12 steps. The fundamental idea in my life in working the 12 steps was whatever my recovery was appropriated by what is said in the big book. So I only ever saw my own image in the big book, 12 Steps Anonymous. I only ever saw my changing, person-centered, psychic structure change as a result of how I understood that in relation to the big book. And it's good. It's not a crime. That is what comes before awakening, and it's natural. the person-centered takes the principle and says, this principle is more permanent than my own emotional nature, my own mental nature. I will take it, but you take it for yourself. Until in the end, you realize that the way you've used the principle was facilitated by yourself. And that idea that uses the principle in relation to personal self does not transcend itself, cannot ultimately correct, cannot. You can change, but you cannot correct. Not by your dream. With the person-centered spirituality, the depths you go are in your person. I did it myself. Question. Dream does assume doership, yes. Oh, I've just found myself, sorry. The information I give you can only come from observation. I cannot go into the mind and come back to it. So even answering a small question is very difficult for me. But do ask questions. I appreciate that. Right, focus. Ah, here I am. So the depth of interpersonal, person-centered spirituality only goes to the depth of what you feel and what arises out of it. And what happens is, by principle, you clean it, you prepare it, you change it. And then there comes a day where you realize that everything you've done, you've only done for yourself. And when you look at the self, you look at the gross body, physicality, and the subtle body, mind, that arises out of it, because body and mind are the same. There's no real distinction between the body and the mind. I saw this upon awakening. There's that illusion of thinking our body and thinking the mind is somewhat different. It's not, it's all one. Then it comes a day where you see that the attachment to the mind to understand the principles, to understand one's own condition, you come to see that the body mind itself, this preoccupation of for attachment. You simply come to see that whatever arises out of the body, from what the body has experienced subconsciously, it cannot transcend itself ever, ever. So it doesn't matter how much it changes via your person-centered way. What transcends it is not that endeavor. When you realize this, and only then can you surrender. Up until now, you've just been feeling good. Up until now, you just love what you read. Up until now, you love that with this feeling, it can be corrected with this idea of what's in the book, you see. And then from that perspective, you can live your your life in relation to what's in the book. I've seen it, I've done it. It's exciting and it feels good. When that day comes for surrender, all that you've done interpersonally, person-centeredly, egoically, is prepare yourself. Preparation comes before. Awakening, it comes before correction. And it has to come before. And Jesus said, repent, which is his first command, which means turn away. What you've done is you've turned away. Whatever book you're reading, whatever course of action you are following, you're simply turning away. And when you're ready to surrender, you'll surrender. And surrender is by no fruit of what you've done. It's the letting go of what is done. It's the letting go of the doership. It's letting go of the mad idea, the ego. But it's the ego that prepares you. When you're ready to surrender, you'll see that everything you've done that has led you here, everything you've done cannot transcend itself. It's as simple as that. Everything you've done up until now is based on what you personally experience. The energy of the mind has fashioned a new image and it feels good energetically, bodily. But then the real day comes and everyone is given this day, where everything you've done, you realize is simply you as awareness attached to the mind in its activity to transcend itself. But in its attachment to the body, it cannot transcend itself. You could live a life completely full service to others, but it would still be for you. Yes. Yes, that's true. And that's preparation. Service for others is preparation. The intellectual path is preparation. Devotion is preparation. Yeah. And so here you are in one's true dilemma, okay, but you've been avoiding this dilemma, yet at the same time you're preparing for this dilemma. Do you understand? You think you have the best spirituality in the world, and I myself thought I had the best spirituality in the world. I did. I had it. And it allowed me to read other things as well outside of that. The best spirituality in the world. And I wanted to share it with everyone and convert everyone. But it was preparation. It was still avoidance. It was still a dream that I dreamed in exile. And then the day came when I just saw it. I just saw that the sum total of everything I'd ever done, read, applied, was happy about, could not answer one question. And that question was, who am I? It could answer everything else. It could answer every problem you had, I had. It could do the most brilliant spiritual path for you. It could do it for me. But it could not answer the question, who am I? And that's when I'm referring, I'm referring there to when Sheila said to me, you're not your thoughts or your feelings. Yeah. So will we all awaken one day? Yes. Yes, that's what you're preparing for. All of you. This is all preparation. So one day, when you see beyond your good works in the image of your idea of what it is, sadness brings up failed effort seen yet again. Good. Fail spectacularly. That's what I did. Preparation leads to the most spectacular failure. Okay. Are you humble enough to accept that? Or is there something you can do? That's how it is. Trust me, it just keeps you asleep. You identify yourself by what you think and by what you can do about your feelings. Tell me something different. Because as awareness, you attach to the body mind and you go within it. And the depths you go in your body equates the depths of your reality. And yet, the depth of reality is infinite. It is not characterized by the body or your personal experience. I can assure you. But while you are deluding yourself, and it's not a crime to delude yourself, trust me, while you are caught up in the activity of your own avoidance of that ultimate question, who am I? That day will come. And that day will come when you realize this, that the body mind cannot transcend itself. The body mind is nothing but memory. That's all it is. You. Everything is a memory. Your body mind is a memory. And if you think that memory, you are sleeping. you are fast asleep, right? Like I was. Dreaming dreams in exile, as I call it. And then suddenly, and it is sudden because it's not done through rumination. It's not done through thinking this. Suddenly, you will just become aware. Have you ever been stunned and all you are is awareness? Yeah, because I'm sure you all have. Something happens and before you can think, feel anything, you're just like awareness. Okay. It's kind of like that. Sean, you're not allowed to leave the room without my permission. Now that I can see you, that's it, sit down. See? Doesn't work when I can see you, does it? Meeting the lion. Okay, so let us talk about this transition, shall we? Let us talk about this doorway between the manifest and the primordial reality that we all are, okay? Because that is what we all are. In the 12 steps, we call it, the doorway to that, it can only come from conscious contact, okay? Not from our thinking, but from that awareness that becomes stunned in submission, okay? When you realize that in the attachment to the mind, in its reaction to the body, what we call self-obsession in 12 steps, we come to see that itself, that activity of attachment cannot transcend itself. Okay, I'm just putting some more cameras on. Hi, Greg. Hi, Chris. So going back to the original question, so that's how I see the two. I see true correction being coming from what is truly seeing, or a preparation technique for that still alters, makes you feel good. That's how it is, and it really is like that. There's no moving towards an awakening. It doesn't work that way. Your awareness can expand to the point where you're becoming more aware of things. And you could be saying to yourself, oh, I'm becoming more aware. My awareness is growing. Again, this is still preparation for the absolute truth, because that truth is still relative of what you're being aware of. It's relative. But now we're going to explore the portal between that relative and what is what we call absolute truth. That becomes the absolute correction, okay? Do not, there's two things: studying awakening, studying self-realization, or study preparation. Two different things. Go to a spiritual school and be very spiritual in how you observe your thoughts, your feelings, tidy it up, but no, that is preparation. If you come to me, we'll talk about awakening. We'll talk about self-realization. Two different things. I've got a low battery. Do you mind if I plug it in? Now we can explore absolute knowledge, absolute correction. And that correction never comes from you. It comes from the observer, but not the ego observation, which has its acquired knowledge ready to box it up into personal meaning, pure knowledge, pure awareness. But for that pure awareness to know itself and to come to see its true origin, it has to come away from all attachment to your body mind. And the attachment to the body mind is what we call me, I, you, whatever that is. That whatever that self image you have is the idolatry that separates you from truly experiencing. Okay, so whatever self-image that is, that comes from attachment to the body mind, who you think you are. Okay, so when you see that, you're able then to just remain as awareness and no longer feed that. Don't feed it. And you'll go through a withdrawal. Okay, it can happen quickly or it can happen slowly over a period of time. It's just about realizing awareness, the observation itself is not attachment. So you've got to remain as awareness and know awareness prior attachment. And it's only here that you start to practice non-attachment. Okay, now can you understand why it's so confusing to a lot of people? Because there are a lot of Buddhists out there and a lot of spiritual people from all other faiths that practice non-attachment. Have you practiced non-attachment? Can I see some Neds nodding? Yeah, have you practiced non-attachment? Because I can assure you, you haven't. You've prepared the way for it. Because non-attachment, when people practice it, it's not attached to someone, to a person, thing, place. They think letting go of a person, or letting go of a thing. You think that's practicing non-attachment, you see. But it's not. That's an idea of non-attachment that you have that serves yourself. Okay? I did it. We all do it. And it feels good. And it gives you a strong spiritual identity. But that's doership. That's doing non-attachment. And it remains in the image of your own self-image, you see? Non-attachment is when, as awareness, you no longer attach to the thought of you that then does you, or you no longer identify with that habit of the mind thinking the self, thinking your person. You start to remain as awareness, and you'll feel that tension to do you as a compulsion. That is non-attachment. That, and it's not for anyone. And it's not about people, places, or things. Okay? You remain awareness. You begin to develop awareness simply by being awareness. Now, in the 12 steps, we have a step for that. We have step 11. Through prayer and meditation, we improve our conscious contact with the God of our understanding. That's what it says. So we know in the program, we know us addicts and alkies, we absolutely know that the only thing that can be improved in reality is awareness, not what you do with it, not how you apply it. It doesn't say we improve our person-centered, self-oriented reality in process for this great big reality. It doesn't work like that. So this is non-attachment. It's going beyond your own compulsion. As it says in the Quran, compulsion is not God. How many people do you see in the world so compulsively knowing that they know God? These fanatics. It's compulsion. When you go beyond compulsion, you're not identifying with it, and you remain as awareness, and you begin to identify yourself as awareness, which has no image, has no self-image. Your self-image may be happening, but there's no self-image. This is the face of Christ, the beginnings of the face of Christ that you're beginning to see. Just the beginning. And that compulsion is like an attention that pulls you into a mind with the habit of thinking the body. How many times have you heard someone say, oh, I've got something coming up? Oh, I've got something coming up. Oh, let's process this. Let's go into mental gear of examining that. Oh, I've got this big feeling coming up, and oh, there's this behavior. I don't like that behavior. Maybe I can let go of that behavior. Maybe look at the feeling, change the feeling, change the behavior. Person-centered reality. And it's important. It's not a sin. It's not a crime. Oh, look what's coming up. There's no coming up. You remain as awareness. There's no coming up. If there is something coming into that field of consciousness, if there's something come up in the body, then what's happening is something is appearing in consciousness. Something is happening within knowing. But you must stay as knowing. Right? I'm gonna explain this because I really want you to understand this. Okay. What you do with it then is up to you. Question from Sean. I've got a poorly doggy, so I need to pop out, but I'll be back as soon as I can. Sorry. Okay, Sean, just bring a vet certificate and I'll be okay. Okay. I hope your dog's okay. The thing is, we live in a world at the moment that is saturated by person-centered reality. Okay. Even spirituality has now become person-centered. Even the 12 steps, that when it started in 1939, it really was about conscious contact. The process side of it is very minimal, but it leaned more to waking up. But everything's become more self-centered process, you know. Boundaries of behavior that define you as a person. Boundaries do not define you as a person. There is only awareness. May you find it now. So anyway, so as awareness, you start practicing awareness for no one, and begin to see in the field of awareness, the body that is appearing, come to see that there is body sensation, feelings, and there is a thought for it, that what we call will. So we have a body mind, we have instincts in the body, we have feelings, we have memory, and we have a will, personal will to meet it. That's all there is. That's what's happening. But it doesn't mean you have to identify with the will and become a personal will that possesses the body. That's the error. That's the illusion. You don't need to do that. The only way the will corrects itself is when you as awareness begin to see that the experience of that thought that arises out of the body cannot exist separately from consciousness, and consciousness comes first. In the beginning is the Word, and the Word is with God. In the beginning is awareness or consciousness, and that the origin of consciousness is with God, not the body. So to awaken, it's non-attachment. Start meditating. Remain as awareness, and come to see that awareness itself is the experience. When the experience of your body mind is given without anyone doing anything to awareness being the experience, you have just corrected yourself. You've just entered into correction, embodiment, being. That's the powerful truth of it all. And only then do the corrections begin to really take place. And there's no one doing it. Only the sonship, only you as consciousness, identifying yourself as consciousness. When you're no longer preoccupied with going in the body and what's coming out of the body and trying to fix it, awareness itself, when liberated from this attachment to that process, can actually go within itself as the self. Awareness can go within itself, not the body, but within itself, and sees that it is the self. This is self-realization. And it's all about awareness. The preoccupation with the body mind and how you should feel and how it is and how happy you are and this and that, that's all of it is preparation. But I'm talking about the day. I'm not talking about preparation. I'm talking about the day. I've seen people in recovery for 20, 30, 40 years, still doing the same thing. Now, yeah. So it's all about awareness, but for some reason we've become obsessed with process. I don't know why that is. I think the 60s did that. I think, you know. So then knowing that, we enter into more the science of consciousness, not the science of process, which is just therapy basically, but coming away from the science of process and just really coming to see what is seeing, what is observing. Can you remain the observer, which is unqualified, which is undifferentiated to anything that is being known by it, whatever it is. A stream, a mental stream coming from a physical trigger, a deep historical memory, and an old historical mental trigger of behavior that is happening. We see that is happening. We see that within these two opposing forces is the illusion, attachment of, oh, that's me feeling that, that's me doing that. Let's come away from that, because awareness itself is doing nothing. Yet it's actually the experience of everything. This is where we start entering into the realm of paradox. So the trick is not to be pink and fluffy. The trick is see reality for what it is, as is, not for you. Because when you examine awareness, your awareness of any thought, any feeling, awareness is undifferentiated. If you're happy or if you're sad, is not your awareness always just awareness? Do you not see that? And that is a deeper reality than you being sad or you being happy. The ultimate reality of these forms is just pure consciousness. And it's that pure consciousness that goes home, nothing else. You can't take anything else with you. You can't use any of your person-centered or person, whatever, acquired meaning. You can't take any of that with you. Only awareness coming away, falls back into its non-location. Don't use the body for anything. Jesus said, he who lays down his life receives eternal life. He meant that. And there's no splitting hairs in that. Either do it or don't. Find the easier, softer way that feels good, that is appealing to you, or go beyond you, which is nothing like person-centered. There's nothing person-centered in it. The knowing of anything is undifferentiated, is okay as it is. It's always okay. But where you've come away from that, you've got to be okay in your person. If you're okay in your person, then you can say, I'm okay. I'm okay anytime. Anytime. I'm happy all the time. And I'm happy not because of anything, not because of any person, place, or thing. The awareness is always happy, but don't equate it with the characteristic of the body-mind happiness. It doesn't smile. It's in fact quite impassive. It's joy. It's always there, and that is the way back to God. Is the way back. Jesus said it himself. I am the light. It is through Christ. We come to know God through Christ, which basically means through consciousness itself is of the self and is the self. Jesus said, I'm of the Father is in me, and I am of the Father. What that describes is consciousness, not the absolute truth of reality. You can never describe that. You can never put that into words. But consciousness you can. We talk about Christ, all the characteristics of Christ, but not God, not reality. You can only know reality through that doorway of awareness. You can merge with it, know you're of it, but you can't just be that. You can't be that. The Christ element, or the self-realization of consciousness is the being. It's a being. The being it. And in being it, you begin to understand what true relationship is. True relationship. Because what's your relationship at the moment with in your person-centered spirituality? What's your relationship like? True relationship is awareness, knowing its origin, which is not the body-mind. The observation of this right now, the awareness of this right now, its true origin is has nothing to do with concept. Question, Greg. I've been meditating on what is actually here, and the deeper into the here-ness I go, there is nothing. So no one corrects anything, right? That's true. And I can see that I trying to understand and correct. Sorry, working, so typing quick. I'm not sure this makes sense. No, it makes sense. It makes sense, Greg. Now, meditating on the here, the now, is the quickest, easiest, the most effective way of going beyond the mad idea, going beyond the ego, right here, right now. you'll do it, and what you have to do is do it so that when the ego does come up, you begin to see the ego as a pull, attention to the illusion of the mind thinking itself. Keep coming back to awareness. There you're practicing non-attachment for no one. And then what happens is that awareness becomes more established. It becomes more conscious contact. It becomes more improved by prayer meditation. So that basically means just awareness being aware of itself. Just sit. Become still. Be aware. And that pull to think your mind is the evil. That's the evil. That's not natural. That's not natural. The way that we're pulled out of our natural state to assume the mind to think itself and to doership of the body, it's not natural. I have to say that. But the thing is, because you've been doing it all your life, it's so ingrained, isn't it? But awareness, when realized, there's nothing ingrained in the awareness. Yeah, it's the experience of the most profound ingrained pattern, but you don't need to lose yourself as awareness to identify with that pattern. This is the perfect observation. This is the perfect non-attachment. It's only then that awareness has the most profound effect upon the patterns that try and dislocate you, try and pull you out. Because when you don't feed them, they start to go through their own dissipation. They start to go through dissolution. So it could be said that the most powerful effect upon your forms comes from just consciousness in its undifferentiated recognition of itself as the self. But the ego, the way the ego views awareness, well, I'm just aware. I'm just aware, nothing's happening. What, do I just sit here all day and do nothing? I'm sorry to mimic it that way, but I hear it all the time. And which tells me that, yeah, that's because it's you trying to be aware. You're putting a conditional basis upon awareness. That's what you're doing. Oh, if I'm just going to be aware, how am I going to get the job done? If I go to work, how do I do things? You know, and it makes me laugh because you're doing it. You know, the ego can sneak into any spiritual practice and take over. It can add a layer of doership on any spiritual practice, anything, like I explained earlier on. You know, practicing non-attachment. You know, you can be aware of someone really annoying you. So I'm just going to detach from that person. I'm just going to detach from that person. Really? How about you detach from that idea of you detaching from that person? How about you do that? Wouldn't that be better? Because I'll tell you what, you'll be correcting. That you'll then start truly correcting. Because that's the interpersonal or the person-centered method of spirituality. And it doesn't correct. It changes, but it doesn't correct. Okay. Do you know how frustrating it is for me to try and teach some people? This ego is so cunning. In the 12 steps, we call it cunning, baffling. What is it? Cunning, baffling. The ego is cunning. But awareness in its simplicity is pure. Ah, thank you. Thank you. Powerful, yeah. Cunning, baffling, powerful. Okay. So doing nothing, being awareness, remaining in your knowing, but again, not in what you know of the now, just as the now, as this knowing that is without attachment to anything, for its knowing of itself as the self, as it say in the Gita. It's awareness. And come to see that when you are as awareness and there's a pull to that habit of the mind thinking itself and you don't identify with it, you'll start to withdraw. It will pull you. You'll get withdrawal symptoms. You'll feel a bit dysfunctional, and then suddenly it starts to go through dissolution. And then suddenly something's corrected, and you've done it not for no one, and you've done it for no one. I sense your frustration and I can understand it. You help me to laugh at myself. No, you've got to laugh at this. Please don't take this seriously, but take it seriously. Does that make sense? Take it deadly serious, but don't do it serious, because the interpersonal, the person-centered takes it so serious. You're going the wrong way. Going the wrong way. But take it serious in terms of be aware. The observer, the observation, when awakened, you begin to go through life as that observer, and it has the most profound effect on any pattern that wants to pull you into a distortion. You just remain observation, and these things start to fall away. The distortion pattern begins to fall away, and the natural pattern of the mind and the body just simply begins to open up to associate to what is seeing. It's very simple, but trying to get someone to go from the image they have of themselves in their attachment to the mind, to thinking itself, to awareness being the experience of all things, is such a gulf. But you can wake up like that. You can seriously wake up like that. It's cunning, baffling, powerful, the ego. But it's a trick. It's like a magician's trick. Once you see the trick, they can't play that trick on you anymore. Play with it. Tomorrow, when you go out, drop as awareness, become that perfect observation, and be aware of your tendencies. The mind coming in, all of it, just, it's simple, but just remain in your knowing, and then things start to change. Once you get it right on the inside, which is the true inside I'm talking about, the reality, everything starts to associate to it, starts to correct. Know it for yourself. As the self. Sort of, when you remain as the observer, when observation identifies itself as awareness observation without any attachment, or should I say inference from a sense of you, when it can just remain openness, it then walks through your life. It just then becomes experience of any feeling coming up, any thought arising, whatever pattern is playing out, and then you're being it. You're being in it. And where it doesn't qualify you, if it doesn't match you, it will go through its own dissolution because you simply do not identify. But you will be the experience of it. You don't deny anything. You will not deny anything. Simply through your seeing, it corrects naturally. That's how it is. It's a science of consciousness, not a science of process, person-centered process. So recap. Coming back and powerful law. Yeah, it is. I'm so glad I'm doing a 12-step talk on Saturday. Because that, you know, there's a real process in that, in a process where there's no technique, basically. Certain principles. Step 4, looking at the self, the mental possession, just look at it, you know, it's from awareness. It's perfect. I'll give you I'll share something with you. I've met a guy in Hastings, where I'm currently living, on the south coast of England by the sea. And I go to an AA meeting to help out. And I only just moved here. So I've met a few guys, and there's one gentleman who's 20 years sober. And he said to me, my God, I realize I haven't developed to that point of conscious contact. I realize that now. And what he does, like so many people, and I say this as a warning, so many people becoming quite fanatical with the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, for instance, and the steps. So whatever he does, as long as it's oh, but it says that in the big book, and the big book says this, and it says that, and I live in relation to the big book. He's realized after 20 years that he's not actually matured in his awareness. He's not actually doing what the book is saying to do. He's become a fanatic of the book. So rather than being what the book is pointing at and becoming that, he's caught up in that person-centered pattern of sharing his message, which sharing everything he shares has to correlate with what it says in the book. I just find it insane. Insane. Every single book worth its salt, and there are many, all point at what I'm telling you, to remain as awareness and to start seeing this correlation between the forms that arise in relation to what is truly witnessing, what is truly experiencing, thus all forms correcting in their true association to what is reality. They're all saying it. It's all saying the same thing, but people keep attaching to things rather than doing what it's actually pointing at. And surrender. Surrender. Surrender to your knowing. I did it. I did the same thing. As soon as awareness awakens, you become perfect. It doesn't matter if you have a dysfunctional pattern in your body or mind, you do become perfect. You're perfect then to allow for a true correction. Upon awakening, I was incredibly dysfunctional after my awakening in 99, incredibly dysfunctional. I didn't have patterns to support healthy relationships, work, anything. I was a redneck. I was a feral young man. But all I had was this, seeing. And from that seeing, things slowly began to associate. And I saw how it integrates. Incredible. Do we have any last questions before we end in about 8 minutes? But now everything I've been giving my energy to seems false. And I ask, what am I going to do? Of course, nothing, but still it's a crisis. It is, yeah. Everything's preparing you for this. I call it dilemma. Dilemma. When you get to the dilemma, you simply come to see that the impulse to doership, self-image, cannot transcend itself. And you're using that to understand, to find out, to work it out, to you know, when you realize that, stop, be awareness, and allow the compulsion to go through its dissolution, because that's what the ego is. It's compulsion. That's all it is. It's tendency, compulsion. That's all it is. Awareness is not compulsion. And awareness, when liberated from the compulsion, not attached, awareness can go within itself and come to see it is the self. When the lockdown ends, will you still be doing everything online? Yeah, I will be. I started doing these online 3.5 years ago when I was living in a chateau on a mountain in France. People still wanted me to do a weekly talk, so I did it on here. Luckily, that happened because this lockdown, it's all systems are open. You know, Chris has always been there, and we've managed to get these out. So luckily, so it's not just to do the lockdown. I started doing these online before the lockdown, and they'll continue after. But what I'm looking forward to are the residentials, where we can all meet and laugh again, drink tea, play music. But yeah, no, I'll keep these going. So anyway, Saturday, we're doing a 12-step day. Do come along. And we will look at the 12 steps. So consciousness, in terms of consciousness, the exploration of consciousness, the science of consciousness, the 12 steps is definitely something I know deeply, and very, you know, something that was there when upon awakening allowed me to explore integration of consciousness, you know, or correction, or whatever. And seeing the 12 steps in the non-duality light, because that I went from working the 12 steps, awakening, suddenly working the 12 steps was not in any way person-centered, because there was nothing in me that could say go into that feeling or go into that, because there was no separation between consciousness, what had awakened, and whatever appeared in it. I could not say, I'll go into that. It was already, consciousness was already the experience. So looking then how consciousness is also the process. It's very interesting, very, very fascinating. So that's it, really. Thank you all. Thank you for joining me this evening. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you for that question, Cora. I think that opened up a very, very good Zoom meeting, really. A good inquiry, basically, because that's what this whole webinar came from, that one question. So do feel free to email a question if you feel you'd like to. Yep, thanks, Cora. Because like today, you know, Cora's question sort of has kind of started the whole discussion, and because it comes from you, I think it's really good when it comes from you, you know. Yeah, I connect more with you. Yeah, so so if there is a question that's slightly long or slightly bit of a paragraph, you can email me that, or just continue asking me questions on here. Okay. So anyway, thank you all for joining me this evening. Thank you all for, you know, making these webinars possible. I'll see you Saturday, and if those that aren't attending, I'll see you next Thursday, hopefully. Thank you all for joining. Thank you, Chris, and see you next week. Thank you, Sean. Take care, everyone. Practice awareness without you doing it, okay?